and welcome to The Underground. I'm the Pied Piper. This is episode 6, and in today's episode, continue our wireless hacking, and I'm gonna teach you how to crack WPA and WPA2. So I've just whipped together a little PowerPoint. Hopefully it will be short, and then we can go and proceed and do some WPA cracking. So WPA is a security method to secure Wi-Fi networks, replacing the broken WPA security. WPA supports many types of authentication. Pre-check keys are the only WPA security that is possible to crack at the current moment, or PSK. WPA is different to WEP. Unlike WEP, where statistical analysis is used to determine the key, plain brute forcing techniques can be used. Now this means that you test the password. If it doesn't work, you move on to the next password. You have no idea about what the key might be. Test random passwords until the actual password is found. Now this is because, unlike WEP, WPA keys are not static. So the only way to collect information about the key is to capture a handshake between the client and the access point. Now you may remember from WEP cracking when we collected IVs and then we determined the key from there. This time we have to actually capture a handshake, or the hash as I like to say, across the air, and then we go and proceed and crack that hash. So handshaking is done when a client connects to a network. Now pre-shipped keys can be anything from 8 to 63 characters in length. I also forgot to put on this slide is WPA passwords are salted. Now this means that they're salted with the ASID, the name of the network, as well as the password. So this stops people from just producing whole tables of hashes and being able to look them up, because everyone has a different ASID. So they're salted with the name. It prevents people producing hash tables and that, rainbow tables and that sort of thing. Alright, so it could be as long as this, small as this, the 8 A's there, or it could be as big as this. Now that's a total of 63 characters. Now let's be realistic. I mean, who's gonna in their right mind have that password? It would be fucking ridiculous if you had to enter that every time you want to connect to your Wi-Fi network, or you want to enter that into an iPhone. That would be a nightmare, and if you made a mistake, that would just be insane. Most people are going to have the 8 to 10 character length password, and robots are going to have that 63 length password. Using the brute force approach uses a lot of computer power. WPA passwords are encrypted with what's called AES, and this is a 256-bit encryption, which is pretty big, and it's bigger than most other algorithms. So according to the aircrack-ng wiki, computers can test 150 to 300 passwords per second. It effectively becomes impossible to crack a pre-shared key, says that. That's the quote I got off the aircrack website. Now this is bullshit. This is just BS. This is why. For example, people often choose their date of birth for their passwords, right? So 8 characters is minimum length for WPA. A standard date of birth or date format is XX/XX/XXXX day, month, year, and this applies to the Australian method, and I think it's the European method too, but it's not the US method. If it was, it still makes this valid anyway. So if we take out the slashes, what does it equal? Well, it equals 8 characters. Now, do you think people are going to use their date or date of birth as their Wi-Fi password? So if we're able to test 300 passwords per second, says the aircrack website, and air quotes, I'm doing that now, no, you can't see me. Then to test every date since the last 100 years, it would be 365 times 100, which is 36,500. Now 36,500 divided by 300 equals 120 seconds, which then equals 2 minutes. That's how long it would actually take you to test every possible date since the last 100 years. So back on topic, I know I've talked a little bit about password cracking, that sort of thing. I find it really interesting, but I'll cover it in a later video. This is WPA, right? So most modern computers can do 5 times the max amount, says on the Aircrack Web Wiki, which is 1,500. The success on cracking a password depends on the user. So if the users say a hacker or a security penetration tester, or someone who has a good understanding of computer security and that sort of thing, they're going to put a complex password on their Wi-Fi network, and you probably won't be able to end up cracking that. But the usual Joe Bro will just put a simple password. They'll think they're like a fucking genius, putting like password 123 with their actual password, and you'll probably be able to most likely break them types of passwords. So in order to crack WPA passwords, it needs to be a dictionary word or an uncomplex password. That means a dictionary word with a few numbers, or a dictionary word with some capitalized letters and that sort of thing, meaning that if it's got symbols and that sort of thing, you're probably not going to be able to crack it. But you've got to remember that there's always other WPA networks around you. So if you can't crack one, try the other. So here's some statistics I just put together. An Intel dual core 2.93 gigahertz can do 1,500. That's my desktop processor. My new laptop with an Intel i7 can do 3,000 WPA passwords per second. And these are GPU stats. I'm not going to go through it in today's tutorial, but I will show you how to do that. And the NVIDIA GeForce GT 540M can do 3,000 passwords per second. The NVIDIA GeForce 465 GTX can do 20,000 passwords per second. And that's what I've currently got in my desktop. It cost me about $200 at the time, and I bought it 6 months ago, so it's probably going to only be $150. And I do a lot of PC gaming. I'm a PC gamer, so whoever says console gaming is a lot better, can you do password cracking on your Xbox? So I know I've talked a lot in this PowerPoint, probably more than it's actually going to take me to show you the crack and that sort of thing, but it's important that I've just introduced you into what password cracking is and some statistics. I did some little maths and that sort of thing. So it's just a little introduction into password cracking, as we're kind of entering it in this WPA type cracking. So let's go and hack WPA. So I'm just going to bring up my backtrack box on VirtualBox. Switch to full screen. I've got my USB adapter in there. Alright, so just start the terminal as always, and we need to put our interface into monitor mode. So M1 and G start, and actually I'll just execute that command, and you can see that our interface is WLAN0, M1-NG start, WLAN0, press enter, and that will proceed and go ahead, and monitor mode enabled on Mon0. So we'll see what access points are available in our area. So arrow-ng on our new monitoring interface Mon0, and just give that a sec to scan through and that sort of thing. And today we're going to be hacking neighbor's Wi-Fi, so I'm going to cut that operation out, and let's collect some information. So just open a text editor here. So I'm going to copy the BSS ID, you'll need that. The channel is 10, and that's all the information. Here under the encryption You can see that WPA is there. It doesn't matter whether it's WPA or WPA2. All that matters is it's this PSK encryption here. Authorization, sorry. So we need to stop our monitoring interface and put it on our access channel. So -ng stop mon0. And we'll go back to our previous command, start, but this time put it on the channel, which is channel 10. Clear this out, and now we can run arrow dump. Alright, so run arrow dump -ng, and we're going to tell it what channel to capture, so channel 10, the BSS ID of our access point, so copy that in there. And that's too many S's, so the BSS ID. And what else do we need? I think that's it. Oh, and write to a file, so -w, WPA, and just our interface, which is mon0. Execute that command. Now I'm going to simulate, as I said, you need to capture a WPA handshake in order to go ahead and crack the password. I'm going to simulate someone connecting to the network, and then I'm going to show you how to kick someone off the network if someone's already connected. So as I said, you need a client connected to the network in order to crack the hash. So I'm just going to turn Wi-Fi on my iPod, and hopefully it'll go ahead and connect to neighbor's Wi-Fi. And as you can see, we've now got a client down here, and that's a MAC address of my iPod. And down up the top here, you can see that we've got a WPA handshake in the top here, so that means that we're successfully captured, and we can go ahead and crack that. But I'm not going to do that because I'm going to show you another scenario. Now, sometimes you will have no clients on the network, and you'll have to be patient and wait for someone to connect to the network and that sort of thing. But if there's already someone connected to the network, they're probably not gonna most likely reconnect anytime soon. So what we can do is that we can actually kick someone off a network using a deauthorization. And this is kind of another flaw in Wi-Fi, is you can send deauthorized packets to anyone. They're not encrypted, so anyone can actually send them and kick anyone off the network. So if they were encrypted, you'd probably never be able to break WPA. But you know, that's the way it is. So I'm going to restart arrow dump here with my iPod connected, and as you can see, we've already got a client on the network. And so what we need to do is open a new terminal, and we can use the replay to do injection. And you can see the deauthorization attack is -0, so replay -0, the amount of times you want to deauthorize that person. So I'm just going to say 3, you can say 1, whatever you want. What else do I need to put in here? The access point's BSS ID, so you paste that in there. And we also need to tell it what client to disconnect off the access point, sorry. So we go over to here, we copy the station MAC address here, and we paste that into here. And we also need to tell it our interface, which is mon0, and it'll say it's sending a deauthorization there. And hopefully that worked. So we've been deauthorized, and there we go, we connected there. I know you didn't see this, but on my iPod I had Wi-Fi networks off, and for that 3 seconds it was deauthorized. You know, I lost connection, and then my iPod went ahead and connected to neighbor's Wi-Fi again, and so we captured a WPA handshake. Alright, so once you do capture a WPA handshake, we need to go ahead and crack it. So you're going to need a word list file. Now there's one word list file that is included in Backtrack, but it's not very good. I prefer the RockU, which I'll probably show in the next tutorial. But for this tutorial, we're going to just use a simple dictionary. I just went and grabbed that dictionary file and chose a password for my Wi-Fi access for something that we can actually crack. So I'm going to go ahead and we can use the aircraft-ng utility. We use the -w for a word list to use. But before we do this, I'm just going to copy my dictionary file to the actual root directory so it will be easier for us. So we can use the cp for copy, and we use the / pentest, passwords, word lists, and the .code.lst, and we tell it where to put it. So I'm just going to use the little squiggly line / for our home directory, and we need to put the name. So I'm just going to call it word list. Then we go over here, we type in word list, we tell it the BSSID of our network. So copy that, paste that in. And we also need to tell it what file, so we called it WPA. We're going to use the WPA deauthorization packet, so deauthorization doc, and we also need to tell it, just put an asterisk here, so anything can go in there, and .cap. Alright, so we'll go ahead and try and crack that password against word list. Now, it's not doing 1,500 passwords per second because I'm running in a VirtualBox and it doesn't have full control over the CPU, but it's going at a fair rate of 700 passwords per second. Now, I'm just going to fast forward this because it's going to take a little bit of time.
I ain't afraid to make this my game. I ain't afraid to change the way the mind thinks. I ain't afraid to go against the grain. I ain't afraid of being afraid, so I'ma do this my way. I'ma do this my way. Through the mist of foggy night, toss the raindrops, revealing hidden thoughts. Close my eyes up, keep walking through puddles of the forgotten roads of tombstones and dead men walking. Seas of suits and ties, stalking, but no one's talking. Mental struggle to stay on top of it. Climb the ladder, restraints we break. Militant chains, my minions chant. Freedom will reign. Knock back black boots one by one against the grain. Carry the sound of troops assembling down. Send to 3 lines moving forward. Pitch flags. Freedom is ours. The outcast, the freedom riders movement. We will outlast.
Yay! We found the key, and the key is wireless. I made it simple, so it actually works. Alright, so as you can see in this diagram, up here we have the time it's taken, so it's taken a pretty long time, nearly half an hour. It's tested, I hate reading, okay, it's tested 1,138,268 keys. Alright, so as you can see, wireless, and crack the master key. Alright, so that's it for today's tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Remember to subscribe, comment, and like. As always, Piper out.